A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 13.
Welcome to a Swift Kicking the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curran. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart. I'm joined with my lifelong friend John Curran, and today we're covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, law number 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. The judgment is use the wisdom, knowledge, and legwork of other people to further your own cause. Not only will the assistance save you valuable time and energy, it will give you a godlike aura of efficiency and speed. In the end, your helpers will be forgotten and you will be remembered. Never do for yourself what others can do for you. Sounds pretty cool, right, John?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, and who does not get a good feeling of a godlike aura of efficiency and speed when you can have someone else do the work for you?
You know what that reminds me of? Remember when I was a kid and my dad would sit in that lazy boy, kind of like Archie Bunker, and he would just stick his hand out to the right and go, "Tommy!" And I
How
would
could I
come flying
forget?
in with a big glass of iced tea.
Oh yeah, and it was usually just as you were about to walk out the door, or you were across the house doing something, and I'd hear Tommy.
That and to come in, I was the remote control before there were physical, real remote controls. He would call me in from playing, and I'd be like, "What?" And he goes, "Turn the TV a decibel louder. Change the channel." And I'd have to stand there flipping through all the channels until he found what he wanted to watch.
Well, you know what they say, every man's house is his castle, and your dad was definitely king of the castle.
Absolutely, he had this down.
But I think I have a hard time with this law because the way my dad was is that he could do anything better than anybody else, and he always chose to do the work himself, which I understand. If you're capable of doing something and you can do it, why not do it? But if you're looking to gain power, really power is about having control or the ability to get others do the work for you. And I like what it says in the judgment. In the end, your helpers will be forgotten and you will be remembered. You know, look at it in a number of different cases. Work. Who gets the credit? The worker bees who actually put the report together, or whatever you're doing, or the boss?
Always the boss.
Always the boss. So I know in my own work world, I find myself sharing a lot of credit with the team because I think give credit where credit's due, but and that is appropriate, I think, at probably my level. But the higher up you go in an organization, the more you need to take credit for the work because the helpers are going to be forgotten.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that at my work. In fact, we just built a lot of studios, and I know that the general manager probably never saw me because I was inside the studio wiring and figuring out how to get audio from one place to the other and telephone lines and, to make sure things that build the infrastructure. And in the end, she probably just saw, the corporate engineer who happened to be in town and thought that this guy was just snapping his fingers and boom, it's done. But in the
Yeah.
end, it was a team of people, and I'm sure that me and some of the other guys just got, they probably didn't even know we worked on the project.
Yeah, what you said, I believe is another one of the laws, and that's to make everything look easy. Like you said, chief engineer, from the higher up leadership looks at the chief engineer and says, "Oh yeah, this guy just snaps his fingers and it's done." But we know there's a lot of work that goes into any project.
Right.
Uh, so as I've gotten older, I've learned to I guess take control or assert my power that I have. Like I like to work on cars. I have throughout my life, and generally I've learned how to work on my own car because I needed to. But I don't need to do that anymore, and I have some issues with my hands that kind of prevent me from doing that. Um, so
But
I give.
can't you just get like a claw or something? Remember that guy in the Bruce Lee movie? He didn't have hands. He just screwed on like
That's funny.
you
I
could
was
get
gonna
you could get one that was like a crescent wrench, and you just screw it on, and then you
like
don't need your
Captain Hook,
hands.
like
Yeah,
Captain Hook.
exactly.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm at that level just yet, but I mean, it's good to know your options. Uh, but you know, I can afford to go and take my car to a mechanic most times, um, and I choose to do that because I think that my own time is worth money as well, and I actually, it by giving up my time, it's actually cheaper. It's cheaper to take my car to the mechanic and let the work get done first, and get it done right, rather than me taking my time away from my family or other things I don't want to do.
Yeah, and
So
in the end, time is so valuable, and sure, we can all do so many things. I get caught in that because, I'm a Mr. Fix It, and I like to fix a lot of my own things. But sometimes you just have to bring someone in because you don't have the time, or you're too scattered. I mean, you can only
yeah,
really only focus on one subject at once. In fact, I was listening to something about the brain the other day, and they were saying that it's a myth that you can multitask. It doesn't exist, and the brain can really only focus on one subject at a time. So to be able to be, and truly be efficient, so um, it's better just to pay someone, get it done, and let you focus your time and energy on the most important thing to get done, which might be just directing someone else to do your work for you.
yeah, I think I read the same article and it talked about how our attention span is actually decreasing. So I think what you said makes a lot of sense in that we're not really multitasking, we're just shifting our attention to something else. So you're focused on one thing for a very short period of time and then you jump to something else.
You can see it when people are driving. You ever drive with someone and when they start telling a story, all of a sudden they start driving slower, and it's like, hey, pay attention, let's get where we're going.
Well, that's because they want to finish the conversation before they pull up in the driveway.
Right. The worst is when you're driving behind someone, you could see them like not looking at the road and they're looking at the person next to them and their hands are moving and you're like they're talking with their hands. It's like how can you talk with your hands while you're driving? And it happens or the
Or
other thing, they're on the cell phone, so they're holding the cell phone with one hand and the other hand is gesturing and it's like, well, what the hell? What are they driving with their knees?
well, they're also playing air drums or air guitar. But if you look up the definition of power, the definition of power is the ability to do or act and being capable of doing or accomplishing something. And I think that that really fits into this law because you can be capable of doing something and choose not to do it. That's different than not being capable of doing it and having someone else do it. I
Right.
mean, you know, um, if my car needs repair and I take it to the mechanic, I mean, my wife gives me credit for getting the car fixed, whether I'm doing the work or not. Um, but as I was thinking more about this as well and looking up the definition of power, the definition of power is also the possession of control or command over others and having authority. And when you look up the meaning of authority, the authority means the power to determine or settle issues or disputes, the right to control, command, or determine. And as I think more about authority, I've always rebelled against authority because I think you need to become your own authority. If not, you need to have control, command, and the ability to make decisions in your life. That is true power. And I think so many of us give that up, and we assume that other people are authority, and it hurts us in the end because we need to take authority. We need to take command and control of our own lives. I always, envisioned this bumper sticker on my car that said, respect authority, ? Become authority. But then I figured, well, I'd probably get pulled over by all the police for any chance they got. So I haven't done that. But, man, who knows? So email us and tell us if that's a good idea.
This is a good time to talk about
observance of the law.
There's in each chapter there's a observance of the law, and there's a transgression. This one's kind of mixed in together, and we go back to our friend Nikola Tesla once again. This poor sap, man, such a smart dude, but he just didn't have it together. He needed this book, man. If he would have read this book, the world would probably be different. But so in 1883, he was hired by Edison to come in and work for him and invent for Edison. And Edison persuaded him that he should seek his fortune in America, and actually brought him here, hired him, and then took ownership of all his work. Basically, everything that he invented, Edison took credit for. You there, John? I hear crickets.
I lost you for a minute.
Oh, okay. I was like, you were just kind of staring at me like a deer. So no, I was talking about Edison and Tesla. How Edison just basically used and abused this guy, and then after when Edison was done with him, he went to Westinghouse, and they really used and abused him. They actually offered him like a sweet deal, and then I guess Westinghouse was getting bought out, and he said, "Hey, listen, I can't live up to my my promise to pay you the royalties on your inventions." So they bought him out for like $216,000, which was still a lot of money back then, but it wasn't the 12 million that it was probably actually worth. And in the end, Tesla did not get any credit for all the inventions, one of which was alternating current, which we still use today, and is probably one of the most important discoveries in history. And it took a long time before people realized it was Tesla. Now we understand that, but still, if you ask people who invented it now, they'll probably say Edison.
Yeah, and Tesla died in poverty.
Yeah, I wonder what he did with that $216,000 though. He must have went and bought some hookers or something. Right? I mean, still, it was good money for back then. So he wasn't very thrifty with his money. Maybe he built like a big light bulb or something.
Maybe he bought some swampland somewhere.
Actually, I remember watching one of those like dark matter TV shows where they showed him. He had, I guess they contracted him to build some super weapon, and they say that this weapon caused the sky to light up and catch on fire in Russia. I don't know. I think it's BS, but that's what they claimed.
Well, maybe they sued him, and that's where he spent his money. He had to pay them back. In any case, I think we're coming to an end of this law. But before we close, I'm reminded of something I've learned through work. There are really two types of people. There are leaders and there are followers. And being one or the other is not necessarily bad. Until you read this law and you see that really the followers don't get the credit. The leaders get the credit. So it's really up to each and every one of us to become a leader in our own life and use the power, assert your own power and use others to get what you want out of life. Because in the end, they're going to be talking about you, you're going to get the credit, not the people who did the work for you.
Yeah, there was also in this, they have little antidotes on the sidebar as always, and one of the things was a fable, which I'm not going to read the whole fable, but I'll just touch on it briefly. It was a tortoise. Tortoise are always in fables. I don't know why, but the tortoise gets stepped on by an elephant, and the elephant, it's like, hey, move out of my way, and the tortoise is like, no, I'm just as strong as you. And the elephant was like, yeah, I don't think so. So the tortoise says, tell you what, come back here next tomorrow, and I'll prove it. So the tortoise, being smart, ran down, and as fast as tortoise could run, he went and talked to the hippo, and he told the hippo, hey, I want to play tug of war with you to prove I'm as strong as you. And the hippo's like, there's no way. He goes, yeah, I promise you, I'm just as strong as you. Put this rope in your mouth, and when I say hey, make sure you pull on it. So then, of course, he went back to the elephant, and his designated meeting time gave him the other end of the rope, and there was a hill in between, so they couldn't see each other. And then he went and hid in the bushes and said, hey, and the whole thing, they both tugged and pulled and realized that neither one could outdo the other, and they both agreed that the tortoise was as strong as them, even though he didn't do any work.
Seemed like a good game plan that worked.
Yep. Just figured I'd pass that along. So yeah, so we're about wrapped up.
I think so.
So the main thing also is make sure to check us out on iTunes, give us a rating, let your friends know about the podcast if you like it, and hopefully give us a 5-star rating. If not, give an honest rating, and then that will tell us what we need to improve on, and we'll try to help you out in whatever we can. So till next time, thanks for listening. I'm Tom Stewart.
This is John Curran.
See you for listening
on the flip
to
side.
a Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to swiftkickingtheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.